On.
Hello.
And good morning, Ashley.
Good morning. Today is St. Patrick's Day.
Boy, Ashley, yes.
Yeah. I don't know a lot about that.
So how are you celebrating St. Patrick's Day, if
The
you are?
beach.
The beach, okay.
How about you?
I don't drink much, so I don't really celebrate it. I'm going to be at home with my partner and the dogs, and that's pretty much it, I'm pretty sure.
All right. Well, that sounds
Yeah,
beautiful. A nice day in. We don't drink either, so let's be at the beach enjoying the
let's do
sun.
it.
It's finally that time again in Florida where we get to go to the beach regularly. So,
A bit jealous. I mean, you know what? Yesterday was fairly warm for us, 10 degrees Celsius, 40 Fahrenheit. Sun was out, so for me, that's a win. When it's been like
yeah.
below 30 most of the last 6 months.
I don't miss that. When I lived in Minnesota, I would have been like, yeah, that's warm right now. Yeah. Mm-mm. Like, that's freezing.
I mean, you get used to it, right?
Right.
I get to
Oh,
walk my dogs if it's rain or shine, right? It doesn't matter. They love it when it's snowing, so it's always a
yeah.
plus. Anyway, Ashley, so let's dive right into the topic for today. Would you like to introduce the topic?
Yeah, sure. So this was actually your idea, but I think it's an absolutely beautiful idea because we often hear, especially today in this new movement of like stepping into your authenticity and making an impact on the world, the statement of shine your light, shine
Mhm.
bright, shine on the other, any rendition you can think of. But I think it's one of those statements that can mean so many different things to so many different people. And there's not really a definition. So it's kind of like open to interpretation,
Yeah.
just like holding space. I think one day we should have a conversation about holding
Yes.
space. Like
Yes.
everybody's like, I hold space. It's like, oh, you hold space? Oh, wow, what's holding space? But that's a different story. So, same for shining your light. Like, what in the heck does that mean? And I think like usual, you and I will have a beautiful conversation that may differ and may have some areas of similarity. But I know for me, I use it a lot. Like literally, it was funny. You sent me this topic, and I was like, "That's random." I literally just sent an email announcing my exclusive or my mastermind called Lighthouse Academy, and it's really about the room for the leaders of the world coming together to shine their light because they know your light can shine brighter when you're surrounded by other light. um so it was just a beautiful thing, but I use it all the time.
Yeah.
And I think it's the reminder, at least for me, this is probably like the simplest explanation, is that your innate state is love and light. So when I say shine your light, if you're viewing that from like an ego of fear and lacking and separation, what you would hear is like an action, right? Shine your light, like an doing. When really, when I say shine your light, it's a being. It's
Yes.
a state of you just are. But the problem is, so many of us live, which, I mean, this leads right into another topic you brought up about a possibility discussing today. When we have so much fear in the way, you can't shine because it's like clouding your true essence because fears of the ego, and it just muddies up the waters, and therefore you can't be a beautiful mirror for others.
Yes. I love that. And I agree with you. That's how I see it too. But I want to give you the not a different take, but I would bring it to, let's say, me of a few years ago before I embarked on my spiritual journey, how I would see it then. And of course, it took me a while to come around to what it actually is and shining my own light. And there's a few parts that come up for me. One, if I look at shining my light and what it means to me, is to be in my zone of genius, meaning the areas that I excel at, the things that bring me joy and fulfillment and success and abundance, and bring more of those to the world. So it's like you said, it's about being, not doing. So be in the zone, be in that area where you're always ready to give and be your best. Now, most of us are not there, and I know that for myself because we're so busy doing, and we always need to do different things, so we can't necessarily be in the zone often. In other words, we can't really shine our light often because we're so busy doing things. And to me, shining your light also touches on vulnerability and authenticity. I used to be someone that had different personas depending on the group or the, let's call it, event or the activity I was doing, be it at work, with certain friends, when I was playing soccer, when I was playing card games, when I was doing different things. It was a different version of Constantin. Why? Because I felt like I needed to fit in. I felt like if I wasn't the person they wanted me to be, then I would be ostracized, right? And that's the fear that you talked about, which is, fear of abandonment, fear of rejection, fear of failure, all kind of wrapped up in one. So when I bring it together, shine your light for me is like you said, it's like be you, vulnerable, authentic, 100% of the time, and give yourself to the world as that. So be you. Now, there's another part you touched on, which is so beautiful. Like with your mastermind, you're bringing leaders together that are shining their light, so then together you can shine even brighter. And I would offer a second perspective of that, because that's amazing. But what I have come to realize in a meditation just a few weeks ago is that I have been someone that would want to do everything on my own, because I'm like, you know what? I was raised this way. I've always been figuring stuff out and doing it. Even if I'm not great at something, I know I can learn it and do it. Right? Be it website building or learning social media or whatever it is. Even though that's not in my zone of genius, even though that's not something that necessarily I really like doing, but I'm like, you know what? I can do it. I can learn it and do it. And by doing that, by keep doing different things, right, keeping busy, I took away from my ability to shine my light bright. So what came to me in meditation was this idea that it's not revolutionary. I mean, most people know about this, or a lot of people, is that by allowing others to shine their light and receiving that, allowing that to come in, I can shine my light brighter. Because now I don't have to keep busy with doing things that are not within my wheelhouse, and I can shine my light brighter. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, I mean that's so beautiful, and I love like how you brought that full circle. I think a big piece to like point out is that when I talk about being, it's really interesting. I a client last week, I invited her to take 30 minutes every day of being, but I wouldn't tell her what being was. The only rule I gave her is that for those 30 minutes, there's no judgment allowed. And if judgment comes in, you honor it and you say, not right now. We'll get back to that in 30 minutes. And the reason why I didn't give her any rules is because we have this vision that doing is doing, like this, like moving, doing actions, and that being is like sitting still in meditation, in, sitting on a park bench, being a monk and just sitting there all the time, when in fact, that's not what I'm saying at all. You can be doing at the level of form what appears to be doing and be in full state of being constantly. So when I talk about shining your light, it's about clearing away the junk that is in the way, so that in any single action you do at the level of form, it is so radiant that it either attracts or it dispels people. And people are probably like, dispels? Like, you don't want to dispel people. But the truth is, if you are not that polarizing, then you are not shining. Because a bright light will attract those that are meant to find that light, and it will repel those that aren't ready for the light or have the opportunity to use that light as a growth, as a let's push through it, let's get to the other side. And that's why I believe bringing lights together is such a powerful time, because as you go on this journey, what I've noticed for myself at times and other high leaders, and when I say high, there is no hierarchy, but people who believe they're high leaders in this spiritual movement, is that they stop surrounding themselves with people that prickle them, and they start surrounding themselves with people that just feel warmth. But if you're not being prickled, if you're not seeing reflections, then you are not clearing away the darkness. And I promise you, if you are enlightened, you will know it. And you won't choose who you're around. You'll be around whoever, because it doesn't matter, because you no longer see the ego. But I see these people that we place on pedestals that are too good. They will no longer hang out with people that aren't at their level, when in fact what I'm hearing them say is, you prickle the shit out of me, and I feel that I've already got to this place, so you go do your own thing and I'll sit here. And I've done it, like, I'm owning up to that as well.
Oh, I've done it too.
But the thing is, like, that is where it's at. And the more you've cleared away, it's these deeper levels that you can be a mirror for others. So that's why when you bring mirrors to a room is not, in my world, a place for learning, because I don't think this is a place for learning, period. This is a place for unlearning, because you've already learned all the bullshit. That's why you're stuck here. So when you bring leaders together, you bring bright, shining lights together, the purpose is for opportunities of forgiveness. And they're going to be that much stronger because these people's lights are that much brighter, and you are going to have to face it. But when you face it and you forgive, you can do miraculous things, like your water, like the cold water plunge you did. You forgave it. You released that old memory of your mother, and you acknowledged it. You brought awareness to it. You didn't allow it to hold on to you anymore. And then look, you got to do a cold plunge for 5 freaking minutes versus 10 seconds.
Yeah. There's so much to unpack there, Ashley, and I agree with all of it. The one thing I was going to go back to, you're talking about shining your light, and some people being attracted to that, some people being pushed away. An analogy came up exactly as you're talking about that. And this is a guest of mine on the podcast a while back talked about this, as being like the weather, meaning that if you come in as, let's say, the sunny day, the sun is bright, people want to bask in that. But if you come in like the rain or a muggy day, then people will likely want to not hang out with you. Now, I want to take that to the next level, to what you said, which is, let's assume you come in as the sun. You're bright. You shine your light bright. Well, some people don't like the sun, right? Some people don't like the light. I've met many people in my life, and I was one at some point. So I was like, I don't want to go in the sun. It's too, it's too bright, too much. And that's fine, right? Those are people you don't necessarily want to attract anyway, right? If they don't feel attracted to you, that's fine. And that was one of the mistakes, I would say, or the lessons I had to unlearn, to use your words, in the past, is that you don't have to attract everyone. You don't have to impact everyone. Not everyone has to agree with you or you with them. You find your tribe, and then you shine as you shine your light. And what I loved about what you said about the prickling piece, you're absolutely right, because if you look at what happens is, at least in my life, because I see this as a good example, and you gave the example of the cold plunges. Whenever I would have a fear come up in the past, and I'm not saying I'm doing this all the time, but most of the time, when I had a fear come up in the past, I would do anything to run away from it. And when I say fear, it could be pain as well, right? Pain is fear, like physical pain, emotional pain, mental pain, spiritual pain, all of it, right? So then I would run away from it. And more recently, I've said, you know what? Actually, let's get curious. What is this pain trying to tell me? And actually, it blows my mind, the amazing stuff you can uncover once you get curious. But nobody teaches us how to do that, right? It's like, for us to unlearn the idea of running away from pain and diving deep into it, so we can see what it's attached to, feel it, and release it. To your point, then you can do anything. And for those listening to the story that Ashley was sharing, I was talking to her offline really quickly. I've always been fearful of cold water. I'm talking even on a summer day, going to the lake or to the ocean, unless the water was super warm, and I'm talking, 80, 90 degrees or more, really, right? Like Fahrenheit, I would not go in, and I would be miserable the entire time, and I would want to get out. And then more recently, I was like, okay, let me try cold plunges, because I've seen the science, I've seen the data, I've seen what people are talking about. It's amazing, right? And I love this Spigo, to where it's a hot tub. They have hot tub saunas, and then, of course, once you get super hot, you want to cool down, and it does so many amazing things for you on so many levels. But the fear was always there. And I was building up the courage, right? So I was trying to fight it. The first, what was it? Actually, you and I talked about this for the last 5 months, right? And I'm like, I'm fighting it. I'm being strong. I'm going in, right? And from like barely putting my ankles in and turning around, I got to 30 seconds, and I was proud of myself because I was right. I essentially used willpower to fight through the fear while trying to distract my mind away from the fear. And the fear was screaming all along. It's like, pay attention to me, pay attention, or the pain if you want, right? Pay attention to me. And I wasn't. That's exactly what I wasn't doing. Until, what was it, about a month ago when I went there and I finally dived into it. By how? As I was getting ready to go in the cold plunge, the fear came up and I got curious and I asked questions. And the more I asked questions, the deeper it went. And all of a sudden it showed me a vision. Showed me a vision of my mother holding me as a baby. I didn't know what age I was. Walking on this dock during springtime in the mountains in Romania. And the dock, I guess, was rotted from the winter and it gave in and she fell through into the water. But I didn't touch the water much as a baby. I could see the entire thing as if I was watching a movie. But all I could feel was her fear. And her fear transferred to me in a way. And in that moment when I felt, I was like, oh, wow, that's powerful. I felt it, like I could really feel it. And then I let it go. I get out of the hot tub, go to the cold plunge. I go in, I don't know, I stay maybe 30 seconds, 45, I don't know how much, but the fear wasn't there. It was like my mind was like, this doesn't make sense. Right? Then I left that day and I didn't have a chance to come back until yesterday, so a month later. Like, check this out, Ashley. I talked to my mother a week ago, or not a week, 3 days ago, because I have forgotten about this a bit. And I was like, hey, can you tell me the story of what happened? Because I remember she told me briefly many years ago. And she's like, well, yeah, this is what happened. And literally, she explained what I saw. She went on the dock, she fell into the water, she had the strength to keep me up. Only my feet touched the water. I was two years old.
Wow.
And she's submerged in the water. Because what happened is she was walking the dock to go into a boat, to go for a boat ride, right? Mm-hmm. That was it. And then since that moment, that's why she always had a fear to go in near water and on a boat. She's never been on since then. And she was like, what, 25 back then? Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh my God, that makes so much sense. So yesterday I go to the place and I'm like, well, I'm going to try it out. I didn't know what to expect. I go in the first time, I'm like, there's no fear. This is weird. I mean, you still, the water is cold, you get that reaction, but there was no fear. And I'm like, this is weird. Wow, weird in a good way. And then I go back to the hot tub, to the sauna, and come back. And I'm like, okay, let's try to see if I can stay here for 3 minutes was my goal. I did. And I was like, wow, I can't believe this. Went out, stayed more in the hot tub, come back. I did 5 minutes. And then to end the night, I did another one, which where I submerged myself fully in the water, stayed there for 30 seconds, got out, and I'm like, okay, I need to talk to Ashley about this because this is blowing my mind. So that's the story. And what I'm trying to get through is that it seems to me now, and I'm curious to see your take, and you kind of touched on this, is like, as soon as you tap into the fear, into that pain, as opposed to running away from it, that's when you can liberate and unlearn whatever it is that you're holding on to.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the biggest piece to understand is fear is not real. Fear is a belief, a choice. So when it's like the monster under the bed, right? When you turn the light on and you look at it, it's a damn mouse and it doesn't have control anymore. And for those that are listening who are like, I'm scared to death of mice, then choose something else. It's a little like fluffy cat, whatever. But fear isn't real. Fear is a belief system you created out of shame and guilt. And unless you face it and you look at it and you realize how ridiculous this is, it will continue to rule your life. But it's not as easy as being like, oh, hi, fear, you're ridiculous, and everything goes away. It shows up in all these little moments because that's how fear really controls your life, is because it's snuck in all these tiny places, these little crevices that you have no clue. And it's so much easier to just ignore the monster under the bed, to just close your eyes and pray that God keeps you safe and go to sleep, instead of turning on the dang light, which is what you are, and seeing, oh crap, this was never a monster. And that's what you did. That's what you did with that fear. For so long, you just allowed it to run your life without questioning it, without actually facing it. And the second you faced it is the second you realize that it had no control over you. The only control it had was the control you gave it.
Yes, because what you just said there, if I can add really quick so you can continue, it's
Yeah.
not that I was not facing it. I was doing quite the opposite. I'm like, ooh, I don't like what I'm seeing and what I'm feeling. I'm going to run away. And essentially, you try to use willpower, right, to
Right.
push through the fear, which is what we do in all aspects of life, right? If something scares us, all of us just push through it instead of facing that fear.
Well, because, okay, so the difference there is the way you were facing it first was you were meeting fear with fear. You were fearful that you would never be able to get into that cold water and there was something wrong with you, so you met it with fear, which, in other words, is you met an attack with attack. And all you get is more attack. So it's like when you put two magnets together, right? And they resist when you do the wrong sides and they resist. But then when you surrendered and you released the weight and instead really wanted to understand this fear, that's coming from love. Only love
Mhm.
wants to understand. Only love wants to like release the weight. Fear wants more fear, wants attack, wants more weight, wants a reason why if I don't push through this, I am unworthy, I am bad, I am all these narratives. So, yeah, essentially, you met it with love. You met it with love and not like ego love, right? Not like, oh, I love you, fear, but love as like, there's no weight on this. And I know that. So let's understand why there's no weight on this, which is true forgiveness, which is forgiveness at the level of the mind, because that releases it and helps it. And it's the acknowledgement that this is not my truth. This is not truth. So then what you actually experience, Constantine, is the miracle. The miracle is the moment that your perception shifts from that of fear to that of love.
Yeah. And you know what's beautiful, actually, in that? It only takes one miracle to then pretty much have a paradigm shift and be like, well, if I can do it then, that means I can do it in every area of life, in every fear.
Yeah, but it's like a slippery slope because it's easy for people to see that moment and see it as magic, which is still seeing it through the ego lens. And it's like, for me, that's been probably like one of the biggest things you learn is it's like, am I seeing this for gain now? The like personal gain, or am I seeing this for like the collective release? You know, am I using this now because I'm like, if I push through this fear, I'm going to make tons of money? Then that's magic. That's not miracles, if that makes sense.
It's interesting take. It does make sense, right? And I see both sides of it, meaning that, right, like as I'm learning about this and as I'm going through it, my way to honor it is to be like, oh my God, I can't wait to share with everyone I know. Because I'm like, if it works for me, that means it's gonna possibly work for you. You're gonna have to try it. You know, it might take more work or more trust or whatever for you to realize it. But if it works for me, why not share it? And to me, it's that idea we talked about, giving and receiving a few lives ago, and that's kind of what it comes up with. But now, if you use that power, the newfound power of unlearning and tackling fear with love, I mean, abundance will come, right? So the money aspect, abundance in relationships, abundance in all aspects of life will come. So I don't necessarily think that's necessarily a bad thing,
But you're
but
missing the point, Constantine.
I probably am.
Because we had this I think this was our first live. Was our first live abundance and love? Maybe. But what I said, so in that statement, you insinuated that you are not already abundant, that you are only abundant once you have figured out this, whatever it is, and then abundance will
Sure,
come.
sure.
So that's coming from the ego belief system, because you are abundant. You have absolutely everything you need right now in this moment. Does your ego believe that? No. Your ego thinks you need a Rolex and you need a Mercedes and you need to pay off your debt and all of that. But the Holy Spirit, or your highest self, the one that can see the whole picture, will always ensure you have exactly what you need for your learning and your forgiveness at this moment in the journey.
Okay.
So you are always abundant.
Yeah, I mean, can't disagree with that. I know I'm abundant.
So, but I think that's like the thing is like, And I don't know if we've talked about this before, but how do you know if you're coming from love or fear? How do you know if you're coming from your highest self or the ego? And one of the easiest things to do that is the outcome. Is the outcome that of like based off of fear or self gain or sacrifice, or is it out of like oneness and love? Like there's no expectations, and that's how you know. But if you're doing something certain because you believe it's going to bring you abundance, then you've already missed the point. And it's not about like shaming yourself then and being like, oh, I'm coming from the ego. Then it's just like, okay, yep, that was the ego decision, because it's the same. That decision, looking at it from the lens of now understanding it, can create shame and guilt. But if you release the weight like you did with your fear and you're just like, is what it is, like obviously a part of this learning journey, and you forgive it, then there is no weight. So not placing weight on either end is what's most important.
Yeah, that's a journey, I would say, right? Because I mean, I hear what you're saying, I feel it, and I still struggle with parts of it, right? I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
it's
I mean, I literally have a video that says this journey is not for everyone, and that's okay. And I would say for me, at the beginning of my journey, of course, the ego was like, that's not okay. Like, if I have to suffer and not manifest my empire and my money, and everybody else must too. But the problem was, I was looking at it from the aspect of the ego and seeing it as suffering. And when I started to see it as just truth and like actually calling my own bluff of like, you made this bullshit up, it doesn't matter, is when I realized like, oh yeah, this is not for everyone, and it's completely okay. But everybody gets exactly what they need in the moment. And that's why like I think our conversations are so great, is because we're not both fully on an identical journey. And if we were, it goes back into what I said at the beginning, where you get yourself in like professional dangerousness, right? Where like that was a big thing in social services. And that's really I'll shorten the version up, and we're not going to use I don't think my mentor would be proud of me in this explanation, but I'm going to give you a short one. It's essentially thinking you know it all, right? Making decisions as if you know it all. And when you were in a helping field that is humans helping humans, or spirit helping spirit, it's super easy to cross that line and believe that you are God. And not like, oh, hi, I'm God, but like that God complex of I know it all. That's professional dangerousness. And I think our conversations remind people like, you don't have to think the same, and you can learn so much when you don't. I think that's when you can like not learn, but remember so much more, when you are challenged to articulate what the hell you're actually saying, challenged to like go deeper with someone who may not 100% want to go to that place.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're talking about the idea of surrounding yourself only with people at your level, and then of course you don't get prickled anymore, so the growth stops, the unlearning stops, the remembrance stops.
Or below you.
Yes, right. So that's why what we're talking here as well, right? We're on a different level. I'm sure all the stuff you say prickles me, and I'm sure I know. So then it makes me go like, okay, I have some work to do. And like you said, it's not in the moment that you have to do the work, because I mean, I could stop now and be like, okay, actually, let me go meditation and reflect on this. But it plants the seed, so then later you have a choice if you want to go explore that further or not. Right? And sometimes the choices are made easier for you than others, or influenced, or however you want to see it. And I'm sure that some of the things I say might prickle you in return as well. So it offers us both a chance to grow, along with, of course, the audience that's here with us.
Yeah, and that's what it's really all about. Like, it has nothing to do technically with our words or learning certain techniques. It has everything to do with what the remembrance is they're sparking. And the majority of remembrance shows up as a feeling of prickling, a feeling of discomfort, right? Because it's that, oh shit, there's something in there I've been ignoring, and it could have guided me through this or that.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that, and that's exactly how I see it as well right now. And the more things come up right now, for me, it's an interesting journey, because now I understand a bit more about the fear aspect of it, and instead of running away from it, go towards it, not with more fear or willpower, however you want to call it, but like you said, coming from a place of love, forgiveness, less judgment, and all that beautiful stuff, right? And it's really interesting. And let's talk a bit about judgment. You said you talk to your client, you talk her to 30 minutes a day, come from a place of no judgment. I know we covered it a bit in the past, but I'm curious to see again, like, what does it mean in her case and in our case when you're saying don't come from a place of judgment? Because it always exists around us to some degree.
Yeah, I mean, to some degree, we're always judging. In order for me to see you as Constantine, I'm judging you because I'm judging you up against every other man I've ever seen or woman. And, you know, the way you look, the way you talk, all that is different. So therefore, you're Constantine, right? Like, I didn't get on this with some other person. So in order to live in this illusion, to believe you are living in this illusion, there is a form of judgment always. But because the illusion is created out of opposites, which means that judgment is the way to like decode it, our brain automatically always wants to go to judgment. So one of the big judgments, say in the task that I gave my client of being, right, there is like, why aren't you doing this? Is a waste of time. This, you know, all those narratives which came from judgment of other people that you learned. So when I say don't judge, first of all, I know you're always going to be judging, but it starts that reticular activating system to pay attention to the judgments that's coming through. Really, that's what's going on. Like, I have no expectations that my client will not judge in those 30 minutes, but I have every belief that saying that will spark her awareness to now know what the narratives are, because she's got awareness and she's now telling those judgments like, hey, not right now, in 30 minutes, which it's like meditation. If you've ever meditated, where if a thought comes in, you acknowledge it and you release it. Because if you focus in on it and try to push it away, it's going to get bigger. Same for the judgment. But by her doing that, she now has awareness. So now next week when we meet, I can be like, okay, so how was being? And she can share with me, first of all, what she came to the conclusion of being is.
Yes.
And because, you know, we didn't give her a definition of being. And for many, a definition of being is meditating, which you can be in meditating, but you can be in walking. You can be in, you know, playing lacrosse. You can be in being a, you know, whatever. Anything you're doing, you can always be being. But then also we can have a deeper discussion of like, okay, what judgments came up that you brought awareness to and released? Because that is gold. That shows us those narratives that are holding you back from being. Those are the narratives that are like fear, that are holding you back from sitting in that cold plunge. And we need to acknowledge them, understand them to the point that we can release them, forgive them at the level of the mind, and realize that they're not true.
I love that.
So judgment is just like fear, Constantine. At the end of the day, they are one and the same.
They are absolutely. That's how I see it too. So what does being mean? So like when you say, hey, just be, how does that look like for you right now?
So look like, I'm really at this practice, and we talked about it two months ago on the Patreon. Remember the Patreon call where I talked about tapping into the well of abundance and listening to what I call the Holy Spirit, and no longer being in charge of doing, if that makes sense. So when I'm being, I'm no longer in charge of what my doing is. Meaning, it's like this, the statement we read last week that you and I kind of dove a little deeper into about a healed mind doesn't plan. It listens to the directions that are not of it, which essentially does mean of it. But like if you want to hear about that, listen to our call from last week. But that's what being is. Yeah. Is relinquishing all control and all knowingness and remembering that you don't know fucking shit. Sorry.
I know that.
And that in fact you have this amazing guide within that's been trying to guide you all along, but you've been too busy playing like master, playing god, playing the expert. And when you be, I mean, it's hard, like, don't get me wrong, like, this is not an all day every day Ashley is being, trust me. But when I am, oh my, like, you, I can't even explain to you how much work I can get done. How many, like, I had coffee with a friend the other day, and I had this realization, because also when you're being, you're not aware of it. It's not something that you're conscious of, that because you're in a place of non-judgment. So why would you be aware? Because you're not judging. And so I was telling her, I was like, you got to get more sleep, lady. I get like 9 to 10 hours of sleep a night. And like right now I have multiple clients. I started this mastermind. I record multiple videos a week. Like literally, I am doing a lot of stuff every week. And she looks at me and she goes, how are you getting everything done, girl? There's only 24 hours in the day. And I took a pause and I thought about it. So essentially I entered into my judgment mind. And I was like, being, and when you bend time. That's all I can think of, because there's no way that when I'm doing, could I get that much done?
I love that, actually, because and I smile here so much because you and I talked about my program, the coaching program I have for my clients, and it's all about creating time and being a time bender. And that's exactly what I noticed as well, and what I've seen in my life. People always ask me same questions you get. It's like, how can you have a full-time job at Microsoft, do the podcast, do the coaching, have these weekly calls with Ashley, all the things that we're both doing? And it's like,
Right.
we all have the same amount of time. It's because, like you said, once, and the word that I didn't hear you say, but that was really big for me in 2022 that opened up my mind, is that the word trust. Because going
It's
into
right
something,
there. Can you read it?
no, I can't. It's
Yeah. Anyway.
But to me, that was my big word of 2023, because you mentioned control, and I was someone that wanted to control everything. So then if I got down to do something, I'll be like, well, how does every step look? How do I get to 5 steps down the road? Now it's about trusting that every step will reveal itself as you go through the process. So now you can start getting stuff done a lot faster, because you can focus in the now, in the moment. Like you said, be now, as opposed to be in 15 different places and do 25 different things, and then actually get nothing done, or you get very little done.
But I noticed, Constantine, like if I think back to being, so last night I entered being, even though I was a shithead all day and really in the ego because my leg was in severe pain. And I still really struggle with staying in spirit when my body's attacking me, which the ego knows that. And the body is the ego's best friend. But ultimately, I was like, oh my gosh, I laid on the couch and I read a book all day to just like try to ignore the pain, right? So of course it got worse because I didn't listen to my own dang words. And then I had 6 thumbnails I needed to make. I had to post 8 days on TikTok, 8 days on YouTube. I had to do descriptions. Like, I had hours of work to do. And I was like, I have to get this done because I have to start it all over again Monday. And I've got 3 brand new clients. And, like, everything was going. And I was like, all right. And I just felt this push from spirit. Mind you, all day, even though I was like sitting in the ego, I didn't feel this push to get up and do my stuff. But I got up, Constantine, 2.5 hours of me sitting straight in front of my computer. I literally got every single thing done. And there's only one explanation for that. And that is that I bent time. Because there is no way that the things I got done, it's just like, and I'm doing like 50 million things at once. I'm like this well-oiled machine, but it's just like flowing. I'm like, okay, it's uploading on TikTok, so I'm over here creating thumbnails, and then YouTube, and then it's like, but it's not chaotic. It would look like if you came up behind me, you would be like, that's chaos. But it wasn't. It was so smooth and beautiful and just moved. And that, to me, is what happens when I'm being. What happens when I'm being guided by spirit.
And you hear the idea of flow a lot. People talk about get yourself in a state of flow, and that's really what you're describing and what I'm seeing as well, right? There's different words, different ways to describe.
Well, I think flow state. So I did tons of research on flow state, and really cool. A full story I'll have to tell you one time is the only reason why I went on a date with Patrick is the most recent book he had read was Flow. And I was like, that's not a book someone just like comes across. Like, you have to seek out books on flow state. They're not like New York Times bestsellers at that
No.
point. And so I had done tons of research on flow state and how, the Navy SEALs and all this, like, use it as like their super mind and where they tap into one another and they can do things that are superhuman. Um, and I experienced that a lot, and it was beautiful. The difference between what I'm talking about and what flow state is only one difference. They have tried to do what is being. So
Yes,
flow state, everything has to be perfect. Like, you have to be doing a task that challenges you just enough but not too much, and like you have to, like, it's all these things that have to align perfectly, and you can't flow from one project to another unless they're so similar that it's seamless. But when you are living in spirit, it doesn't matter what the F you're doing. You are constantly in flow state, and you don't have to manipulate the illusion to get there. That's the difference. And I think that's why I was so attracted to flow state. It was like a part of my journey. It was a stepping stone.
yeah, I'll stop.
Yeah, and then when I got to living in spirit, I was like, man, this is what like I hyper focused on for so long, and was so curious how I could ever live in that state all the time. It was like, at points I was like, well, maybe just take mushrooms 24/7, like, how do you constantly stay in this state? And then I was like, oh, that is our innate state. The
Yeah.
problem is that we have to unlearn and get rid of all the junk that's keeping us from it, not put more junk in alignment to activate flow state. No.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And you know what's funny? I was in similar states many times this week, and now it got me thinking because it brought back something. I was being at one point and doing many things, but then I could hear my judgment. It's like, well, I can't be if I'm, like you said, like, while that's working, I'm doing this and I'm doing this. So I didn't notice my judgment come in and be like, well, this form of being is not correct. It has to be a certain way, which is a really interesting thing for
Right.
me.
But that's what we've been trained. We've been trained that like being is like this elusive thing that monks know how to do, or the Navy SEALs know how to do, because that's doing, right?
Yeah,
That's intentional doing actions at the level of form that activate a being, because the like, I don't know. I'm at a point where words really can't explain what I'm trying to get at. But essentially,
that's okay.
I always say to people, if you want to live in flow state, if you want to be like you're tripping on mushrooms every day, then your goal should be to untie from the ego, because that the more and more I do that, the more and more I'm like, shit, this is the place I wanted to be at. When you don't set a goal, but you get somewhere and
Yes,
realize it was like
yes.
your biggest goal ever, but you forgot to set it and you already made it.
I mean,
That's what it feels like.
even like yesterday with a cold plunge, I had going in yesterday. I had I mean, I had no thoughts or no goals to be like, oh, I'm going to be there 3 minutes and then 5 minutes. And that length, I was like, oh, if I stay 30 seconds, I'll be happy, right? Because that's pretty much been my record, 30 seconds to 60 seconds, right? So I was like,
Mm-hmm.
and then going in, like you said, and then just being, it's like, I have no idea. Literally, I think people thought I was crazy because, like me in the past, people would just come and go, like barely come in or turn around. And I was just sitting in and I had the biggest grin on my face. And it was like, I had no idea what was going on. It's just, I remember in the 5 minute one, it got into a stage where I was just like, I didn't feel the cold. I didn't feel any. I just feel peace and joy, and it's like my analytical mind and my ego, if you may, was like, I have no idea what's going on, but this is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, how do you
Well,
replicate that in other areas of life?
Well, I mean, this is a really unfavorable subject, and I actually spoke on it at a mastermind group that my client holds, and the people were like, "What in the f?" But not setting goals, that has been like the best damn thing I've ever done, and it goes into the same statement of a healed mind doesn't plan, because planning or goal setting has to do with the future, and you usually create those goals based on the past. Well, if we truly believe what Eckhart Tolle says, we sit and put quotes like that on our t-shirt, but the question is, are you living it? And if you're living it, there's power in the now. So how the hell is setting a goal helping you with the power of now? It's not. And if you would have set a goal, Constantine, when you walked into there, like actually we're like, okay, now we're going to hit 90 seconds. I promise you that's all you would have hit, because you would have blocked your potential. A healed mind doesn't plan because it has no clue what its potential is. So therefore, your best laid plan can never equate to what you are capable of. Period.
I feel like this is an amazing topic for next week, because I would love to dive into. No. I love that, because I would love to dive into goals versus vision. Because I'm with you. I know that I don't necessarily have goals, but I do have a vision that I tap into, I visualize, I feel into. And it's not necessarily tied to a specific goal, but to a place of being. And I'm curious, I'm sure you have some different takes on that. But going with the goals, what you just made me realize is that while I didn't go in with goals into the place, when I got into the water for the 3 minutes one, as I got better, I'm like, ooh, I'm gonna attempt to go to 3 minutes, right? So immediately I set a goal, like, halfway through. And the same with the 5 minutes. I was like, ooh, I bet I can go to 5 minutes. Right. So I guess there's more to unpack.
That's different than like a goal. You're like, I bet I can. Like, it's almost like being in there activated your ability to allow the unseen to be seen. And it was almost that statement when you said that reminded me of a curious child. Like, oh, I bet I could walk one day. And so the child tries and tries and tries and tries and tries and does not give up, because it's just a curious thing. It's not like I have to learn to walk. That's what the adults in that child's life say. The child's just like, this looks like something fun. I bet I could do that.
I love it. I mean, I agree with you 100%. I know the words I chose now perhaps didn't reflect 100%, because I know it kind of felt more like a goal when you were talking about it, but I see both sides and it's beautiful. Now, I know you have a hard stop here in a few minutes. So I'll bring it to a close, but maybe next week we'll dive into the goals and visions and all that stuff and go deeper, because I love what you're saying there. And I never actually considered it that way, but it makes so much sense now to me.
Yeah. No, I think that would be great, because it usually tends to blow people's minds, because we're really raised to set like, if you don't have goals, you don't have a purpose in life. Right. And even like suicide, I've done tons of research around suicide and stuff. You're more like, one of the assessments is, does that person have goals? Do they have a purpose? And that will determine your likelihood of lethality if you don't have goals or a purpose.
Purpose
so like
is a big one.
If I was assessed right now, they'd probably be like, oh shit, she's at risk of taking her life, or doing something crazy, because she literally has no goals.
I'm assuming you do live in your purpose, though, to some degree, or that's a different topic too, I guess, for another time.
Yeah, that's a different, because my purpose is the same as everyone's purpose where like my understanding. But yeah, we should dive deeper into that. So
many topics.
Yeah, so maybe we should write these down: purpose and then goal setting. But
and vision setting, that's a big one.
Goal, vision,
purpose. Because you see, like in my program, when it's about creating time, I looked at how I did it to get to this point, and like you, bend time and whatnot. For me, there are 3 big pillars, and we can touch on those, because I'm curious to break them down, and for me to learn and grow from that too, and for the audience. But purpose, so your why, the purpose, right? The vision kind of come together. Like that's, once I had that, everything else became very clear. That allowed me to see my gifts, which is, I believe that every human being comes with unique gifts, and there is some overlap, but we all have something that we're gifted at. But there's also strengths, things that we've learned through this life because we were doing. And then lastly, of course, the foundation, which is our psychology, which is our thoughts and beliefs about ourselves, others, and the world. Right. So let's call it more of the science aspect of it, what someone that's honestly on a spiritual path could absolutely take and make massive leaps in their life very, very quickly. I mean, I'm seeing transformations in people as short as 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, right? Big transformations after 3 months together. So I see value in both of us. I'm curious to see how we can deconstruct them at some point.
Yeah, I think that'd be great. So I want to, because we kind of like strayed off. So for the last like minute, just kind of each share a little wrap up of what shining your light is to ourselves, because I think that's what we
Yeah, that's
started on,
yeah. I
right?
love that actually. I love that. So I'll go first then. So for me, shining my light is being me, being my authentic, vulnerable self, and bringing in that person to every interaction. Meaning that I don't go into a meeting at work or at a bank any different. It's just me. I'm shining my light, and by shining my light, essentially gives permission to others to shine their light. And for me to be able to shine my light very bright, I also have to allow others to shine theirs and receive their light, like yourself and other people I'm partnering up with and working with. That's what shining my light means to me. It's giving yourself 100% everywhere, and then it gives it to yourself and to everyone else.
Yeah. I mean, mine's pretty much the same. Shining your light to me means shining the light and doing what you can to remove the barriers, which is that of fear that's keeping your light from shining. And then being open to being that mirror for others, but being open to seeing your own reflection of the light in others, and really just getting to that place of being, because when you be, you are light. So the light will shine so bright and you just be.
Yes,
Um,
exactly. Exactly.
yeah.
Love it, Ashley. So what we'll do is, to wrap it up, I'll share where people can find me about my program, and then I'll pass it over to you. Do the same about your
Yeah,
mastermind.
your
Everything that
program you
you do.
just dropped. Yes.
Yes. So
Constantine
my
can you can hire him now. Before you just thought he was amazing and you could only see him on Unleash Thyself and now our Sundays, but now you could literally have him one-on-one weekly. I'm so excited for you. Okay, share about it. Sorry.
thank you, thank you. No, no, no. So my program is called Peak Performance Without Pressure. We won live yesterday. The idea is that I help high achievers, like the ones listening here, to create time without sacrificing anything. Not your well-being, not your finances, not your success, not your relationships. In fact, you're going to gain in every single area. And that's pretty much it. And I mentioned the pillars already, right? We look at having a clear why, or getting clarity on the why, on the vision that you have for life, understanding your gifts and strengths so we can double down on them and step away from the fears. And while we dive into those and heal them, and of course, creating a foundation where your thoughts and beliefs are supporting you, not sabotaging you, right? Through procrastination, hesitation, overwhelm, fear of failure, all that stuff. And what I'm seeing with my clients so far, actually, because yes, it's official now. I did a pilot for the last 3 months or so, and transformations have been amazing. I mean, I had a couple of testimonial calls this week, and it just blew my mind. I knew that there were transformations, just didn't realize the scope of it. Like people going from fully overwhelmed, stress, being on sick leave in a high-performing job, to now waking up every day feeling filled with light and love, and cannot wait to challenge the day. So yeah, I mean, it's been amazing, Ashley. And anyway, I want to bring this more to the world, and we're doing this through our conversation, through the podcast. I will have group coaching as well. This one is one-on-one support, and my mission in life is to inspire and empower others on this journey. Because if I can do it, anyone else can, and everyone else can. Like you said, Ashley, we are all one. Which means that as we go on this journey, we all walk each other home. And I keep stealing your quote because it's so beautiful. I know it's
really Ram Dass's quote.
I know, but you can make it your own, right? Because we're all one. So
yeah.
I attribute it. So thank you, Ashley, for giving me the chance to share that. But I would love to hear from you, because funny enough, we both launched something this week.
Yeah. So I also do one-on-one coaching, like Constantine, the unicorn effect. Essentially, it's walking you back to this place we talked about today of true authenticity and being the light and clearing away all the noise that's getting in your way. But this week I launched Lighthouse Mastermind, Lighthouse Academy, and essentially it's the room for the leaders of the universe to come together and be these bright, shiny mirrors for one another so that they can take their unlearning to an even deeper level that is filled with support and love. It's a very exclusive group, only 7 people at the max, and there's a lot of criteria to get in. So if that interests you at all, please reach out. But my favorite thing to share on here is, like, you love hearing Constantine and I chat. Once a month, if you go to Big Miracle Energy Patreon, we get to chat all together, and we do this together. It's a live discussion the first Sunday of every month. We plan to add a second one coming in April that will actually go live on YouTube as well. But we would love to see you there. Go sign up and have a live discussion.
Awesome. Ashley, well, have an amazing day. I know you're
You
going to
too, friend.
enjoy the sun. And everyone else listening, Courtney said hello in the chat. Courtney.
Hi, Courtney.
Hello as well. And yes, enjoy your day and have an amazing start of your week. It's always beautiful if you just be.
Bye.
Bye-bye.